Hey there, Jeff with missionmusician.com, and bringing you part 2 of Mix With Me, the mix series that we're going to do, and we're not ready to mix yet. So I just wanted to shoot this video. I'm going to try to make it quick, but I know how long-winded I get sometimes. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as getting ready to start this mix. I'm doing all of the mundane, ordinary, boring stuff up front, so when I open this session to mix it, I can just mix. So there are a couple of things that I want to talk about in this video. The first thing is, let me click on the session. First thing is that I have gain staged all of this audio to about negative 15 dB. You can see that I've brought down let me really quick show you how I did it. I just used Audio Suite. Oops, sorry about that. I just used Audio Suite and went to Other and selected Gain. And for example, let me put this back up at 0 dB where it was. And I analyzed the track, and so it was said it was negative 3.5, so I went down 11.5 to make it, if my math is right, negative 15. So if I reanalyze this, now we're right at negative 15. Okay, so if you're not using Pro Tools, your DAW probably has a trim plugin or a volume plugin, something that needs to go before all the other plugins, so the audio coming into the fader is reduced down. Now you don't have to do this. You don't have to gain stage. I have a video. I just put a link up on the screen for the video, and I don't know if it'll show up right when I'm talking now, but it will show up. My YouTube's being funny where it puts the annotations where I pop up little bubbles, speech bubbles. It's putting them earlier than when I'm actually talking, and I don't know what the situation is. Anyway, let's move on. So I put in a reference track, and what I've chosen is what did I choose? I'll Be by Edwin McCain, and I chose this for a specific reason, actually for a couple specific reasons. The singer for I Am Cassettes actually sounds a lot like Edwin McCain, and to me the important part of this song, the part that evokes emotion, is the vocal. It's the vocal and it's some of the keyboards. So I wanted to kind of get in the genre of Edwin McCain, because this song I'll Be is kind of an emotional song, moved by the vocal, and I'm not a big fan of the drum sound on I'll Be, but if I'm considering the vocal the most important part, then that's what I want to reference this vocal to. So let me just play a second of this if you're not familiar with it.
And tell me that we belong together. Dress it out with the trappings of love.
All right, so I brought the volume of that down to somewhat match this. I don't know how close it's going to be. Let me play this. So this may need to come up just a touch. All right, and so I've gain staged. I've routed all my tracks. Let me get back to this other view. So let's run through the routing real quick. Sometimes I take for granted that most of you know what auxiliary tracks are or buses are, and I'm assuming for the most part that you guys do. Maybe I should shoot a video on that. I'm not sure. So this probably isn't for the absolute beginner who doesn't know what a bus is. So let me just really quick show you, and I'll create a new one here. So let's say I wanted to send, well, first, before I go on a tangent on that, all a bus is I'm sending two tracks it can be used a lot of different ways. I don't really know what a great explanation is for it, but I'm sending the snare top and the snare bottom to a track that does not have audio on it, all right? It's just so here it is, snares. You see there's no audio. Well, both of these tracks are feeding into this snare bus, or this snare aux, or this snare auxiliary channel. And I'm going to process both of these, the snare top and the snare bottom, on this channel. Okay, so that's what this bus is doing. All right, and so I've sent all of my drums to the drum bus. Okay, so the kick, if you look up here, is going out to DR3, which is drums 3. All right, the snare is going into snares 1. See, snare out. This is the outputs right here. It's going into snare 1, and then it's going to the drum bus. All right, so all my drums are routed to the drum bus at the moment. And I have another auxiliary channel here called crush, and I have some sends here. I just used the send and sent it to a bus, and you can't see it, but crush is up here, and that is what I sent all of them. I sent the snare, the toms, the kick. Actually, you know what? I didn't send the kick. The kick are all going to the crush bus, all right? And they are all turned off right now. We will address them when we get to that if we need it. As I mentioned in the other video, I have 2 auxiliary tracks set up here in case I want to trigger some sampled drums. Probably won't need to in this song, but they're set there just in case. All right, then I have the bass guitar track, and it is going to the bass bus. Now you'll see I have 3 auxiliary tracks right here, and I may use one of them, I may use 2 of them, I may use all of them, I may not use any of them, but I have them set up, and let me tell you what I got them set up for. So I have this one called bass low, and I have VMR on here, and it's turned off. And so this would be if I wanted to parallel process the low end of the bass. All right, and we may do that, we may not. I have a track called Bass Distortion where I have an EQ and a distortion plugin, Sans Amp, and they're both off. All the plugins are off except for VTM, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then I have Bass Amp here, which is amplitude, what is that, 3. I have their Ampeg bass amp pack, and I may use that, I may not. So all of these bass tracks are routed out to bass, and it's going into the bass auxiliary channel, and then that is run to the sub mix. And as well, you can see the drums and the crush bus crush bus are ran to the submix, and the submix is obviously the last fader, or it's called a 2 bus, and then that's ran out to the master fader, but we'll get to that in a minute. So all these tracks are run to group buses, so drums are run to drums, bass are run to bass, guitars, whoopsie, what happened there? The guitars right here in the green and orange are ran to the guitar bus, you guessed it, which is ran out to the submix. Same thing with the keyboards. They are all ran to keys into this bus and then ran out to the submix. I have these 2 vocals, which are both lead vocals. One of them says Vox Bridge and one of them says Vox. They're ran to lead vocal, lead vocal, lead vocal. All right, this lead vocal bus, and that's run out to the submix. I have a parallel compression auxiliary. Well, I'm just calling it P-comp for now. It's an auxiliary track that both of these vocals are sent to in case I want to do some parallel processing on the vocal. I may not. These are all background vocals, all of these here, and they are run to the background bus. You see background vocals, and these are going out to background vocals, and it's going into the background bus, and then that's run out to the submix. Now, my reference track is not ran to the sub mix because I don't want any of these plugins to affect my reference track. The reference track is ran out to the master fader, all right, which is right here. And then, as I mentioned before, I have some effects sends set up, and they are just ran to the sub mix. Okay. Let's see what else I want to talk about. I have VTM on this track right now, and my intent is to use the new feature in plugin or in Pro Tools called track freeze. How I normally would do VTM is I would set it up on a track, set it the way I want. Let's see, copy the settings, close it, open up Audio Suite, open up let's see, harmonic. Why can't I find it? Open up virtual tape machines, paste the settings, and then I would render it, which takes a long time to do. But VTM is kind of a, I mean, it's not a massive resource hog, but it does use up a lot of, well, I'll just put it like it is. It is a pretty massive resource hog. But I love using it. It's my favorite plugin. If you haven't heard me mention that before, I absolutely love this plugin. And so I'm going to use the new feature. I'm going to try to use the new feature called Freeze in Pro Tools, where you can freeze the plugins. So I'm hoping that that goes well. We'll see, and I will experiment with that before we start to mix. All right, now the other thing that I have going on, you guys may or may not be able to do. This is kind of Pro Tools specific. I don't know how other DAWs handle this, and let me show you. I've done this in other videos. I think I did it in how to mix a song video. Or it may have been this mixing with Slate plugins. I'm not sure. So I have a vocal track. I have two vocal tracks here. Two lead vocal tracks. Now, normally how you would handle sibilance on vocals is to use a de-esser. I personally do not like de-essers, and let me clarify that a little bit more. I personally do not like the stock de-esser that comes with Pro Tools, which is the only de-esser that I have. I prefer manually de-essing the vocal track, and so let me kind of show you really quick what that means. So all I did was make a copy of this vocal and renamed it vocal de-ess. So I'm going to switch back to the original vocal, and you can see here, if I zoom in, let me make this a little bit bigger for you so you guys can see it. All right, so what I did is, let me zoom in just one more touch. Okay, maybe even one more. There we go. Okay, so I can find an S easily, or a T or a ch sound, because it looks different. All right, so that is either an S or a ch or a T, or let's solo this. So it's a T sound. You'll notice that whenever there's an F or a T or an S, that the waveform looks a lot different. Now, obviously, you need to use your ears, but here's like a big S, I'm assuming. Yeah. So, and let's see. Sometimes you got to zoom in kind of close to see the difference. But you can also just use your ears and listen to the track. Let's see here. So there's a kind of a funky sound. All right, so that's a k sound. So I'm just showing you this real quick to show you what I did here. All right, so this is something. Yeah, so that's an S. Okay, so what I did, how I handle this in Pro Tools, and you, like I said, you don't have to do this. You can use a de-esser if you want. I just personally do not like the de-esser in Pro Tools. I don't like what it does to the vocal. So I like to handle the S's this way. So what I would do is I would select the whole section and I would reduce it, and I normally always stick to -4 dB, or maybe we're gonna, there we go, -4 dB, and then I right click, go down to clip gain and copy clip gain, and this is how I work through the song. All right, so I would play this, so there was another S, and then now I can just select this and hit V, and it does that clip gain for me. There's another S. So if I just hit V, all right, so I'm going to undo that. Let me zoom out here. I'm going to undo these. Ah, darn it. Sorry. And I'm going to get to a course here and show you the difference that this makes. Because once you start adding EQ and compression, it really brings those S's up. Let me find the chorus.
So touch down your heart to my chest and fix what needs.
Okay, so there's a lot of S's, X's, F's going on there. So let me do this. Let me put on this de-esser track, and we'll play this part, and then I'll bring in the other one. So this is what I've done. I've taken all the S's down.
So touch down your heart to my chest and fix what needs fixing. So touch down your heart to my chest and fix what needs fixing.
One more time, the DS version.
So touch down your heart to my chest and fix what needs fixing.
And the original.
So touch down your heart to my chest and fix what needs fixing.
Now, on its own, by itself, it's not too bad. If I were to use a de-esser, which most of you probably will, let's see, where is their de-esser? So if I were to use one, I would select high frequency and listen to try to find, and let me zoom in here. I'm just showing you this now, so when we get in the heat of mixing, we won't have to go through it. So I'm trying to find that cutting frequency. Normally it's usually between 6 and 8. You just gotta, all I'm doing is listening to it and finding where it's most offensive, and then I will bring it down.
So tight, 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 so tight. So that tames it down just a little bit, and I could zero in on the frequency a little bit better if I wanted to. But that's not how I do it, so I think it's only fair that I show you exactly how I do it. Just so you know, it's another tool to put in your tool chest. So let's see if there's anything else. Oh, that's driving me crazy. So I did go through and do that on the bridge box and the regular box. Oh, okay. So I mentioned this before, and let me scoot down. Oops, crap. I'm moving all this stuff around here. Didn't mean to. Let me talk really quick about this session. Now, when you download these files, the overheads are in two separate tracks. There's a left overhead, right overhead. Same with the room. There's a left overhead and a right room. I've bounced these down to a stereo track
because I don't want to process the tracks individually. I could send them to a bus and just process it to a bus, but I just went ahead. It takes the length of the song to bounce them down. It wasn't that big of a deal, and you can render them offline in Pro Tools. And so I did these 2 tracks, and then I also did the acoustic stereo track. I bounced that down to a stereo wave, or a stereo track, sorry. And there's a couple other things I want to discuss. You'll notice in this track that there are a ton of stereo tracks, and that's a problem. If everything's stereo, nothing is stereo. Okay, you just have everything wide left or wide right. There is no. It sounds smaller with a ton of stereo tracks. So I am going to pan most of these tracks. And I was doing some kind of exploratory work, just running through and listening to these tracks in solo. And I did notice that most of the synths and keys, they are dominant on one side of the channel. Now, there is information on the opposite side of the channel, but not much. So I'm probably going to end up and pan those whatever way the dominant side is. And we'll address that when we mix. And then things like the acoustic. There's 2 acoustics. One is, well, there's 3 acoustics. There's acoustic left and acoustic right, which is the same guitar. And then there's another mic'd acoustic. I don't know if I'm going to use both of these or one of these, but I know I am not going to have a stereo acoustic. So instead of just bouncing the acoustic down to a stereo file, you can just use either left or right if you want. Or if you want a stereo acoustic, hey, go for it. But I'm going to try to limit my stereo instruments to the overheads, the rooms, and I'll pick one other thing maybe that will be wide. I just don't want a bunch of, stereo instruments. I want it panned left or right or in the center. So, and we'll figure out what we're going to do in the mix as far as that's concerned. Let's see what else. And you'll notice that I've got all my plugins on, but they're not on. They're all bypassed. All I really did was went in and put VMR on most of these and just put the VPC, the VCC. I put in a couple of EQs, not sure what I'm going to use yet, and some other stuff in a compressor. And I obviously won't use every single one of these on a track. It's just way too much. But it's there so I can play around with it, so I don't have to. I don't know, you've probably seen videos of me, other videos where I'm over here going, where is it? I can't remember. So I don't want to do that when we are trying to attack the mix. I just want to, boom, open this up, go to town, see what the track needs, start messing with this, and then, shut it back down and move on to the next one. Because, like I said, we are going to try to attack this mix and just focus on mixing, nothing else. Not editing, not comping, not adding plugins. Now, I will say this. I may have to add a plugin here and there if I'm not liking the way something's sounding or whatever, but it's a lot easier to do on one track than it is on 40. So I'm pretty much set up as far as that goes, I think. And I also wanted to address, since we're talking about plugins, I want to address the plugin issue really quick and assure you that you don't have to have special plugins to mix. The plugins that come with your DAW are good enough to mix a song and get pro results. Now, some of you may roll your eyes at that and think that I am just being, I don't know what's the word, naive. But I've mixed a ton, and trust me, the stock plugin, if you've got a stock EQ, stock compressor, stock reverb, The reverb is kind of iffy. You're going to have to use EQ after the reverb to make it sound good, but I normally always do that anyway, even with good reverb units. And then, if you have some type of saturation plugin or like for example, let's see, harmonic, soft tube saturation knob, completely free. You can go get that from Soft Tube. That's a good plugin to use. As a matter of fact, yeah, I have it on my snare in case, because I use this on snare a lot. And you know what? One thing I did forget is I want to route a snare distortion track. So I'm going to send this so you can kind of see how I do buses. I'm going to send the snare to a new track, and it's going to be a mono aux track, and I'm going to call it snare distortion. And I'm going to create that, and I'm going to send the out. I'm going to actually send a full copy, which I'm putting it up to 0 dB, and I'm going to send it pre-fader, which means that if I turn the volume down on the snare, it's not going to affect the volume on the auxiliary track. All right, so it's it comes before the fader. So instead of coming down here and then going over to here, it comes down here and goes over to here. All right, I hope that makes sense. All right, and then I'm going to throw, let's see. I'm going to actually, before I do that, I'm going to send this out to the snares bus, if I can find it. The snares 1. All right, so all 3 of these tracks now are going to, wait, what did I do here? Actually, let me move this guy over here. So snare top, snare bottom, snare distortion are all going to the snare bus. And I'm going to mute this for now, and I'm also going to turn off descend. And I'm just going to throw a, let's see, come down here and throw a distortion plug-in on it. Let's see, harmonic. And let's go with, let's see. Let's just go with air distortion. And I'm going to bypass that, and I'm also going to throw a blue 1176 on here. And let's see, let me just flip it over to bluey. And I'm going to turn that off. Okay. So, again, if you have a stock compressor, stock EQ, stock reverb, some free saturation plugins, you can get Slate's Revival Sonic Enhancer for free. Then you can mix a song, and you can mix a song well. Pro results. It's true. I've done it. I've done it a few times just as an experiment. Sometimes we get caught up in this plugin or that plugin, and it's going to do this for you and make your mix this much better. And to be honest, to date, the only plugin that I have absolutely flipped out over is VTM, because I absolutely love what it does, and it's so subtle. Most people don't really even notice the difference, but I really notice it on snares and kicks and guitars. And so, did I talk about track freeze? Yeah, I'm going to track freeze all these VTMs. That's the only reason they're on right now. So, I think I'm repeating myself. I think that is all that I wanted to discuss with you before we actually start the mix, which I'm hoping to do tomorrow. I don't know if I'll have time. Working on another mix at the moment. So, I'm just trying to get this all together so we can focus on the mindset of mixing. That's what this series is really all about, the mindset of mixing. So we want to open up our session fresh, ready to go, and just mix. Not have to worry about routing, not have to worry about stumbling through finding plugins like I do a lot. And I'm going to try to do this a whole lot more this year. A lot of times I get lazy and I I normally use a template. I didn't use a template in this song, and I should have, but I normally use a template, and I just pull the audio files in, and I start mixing, and then realize, oh, I gotta edit, I gotta comp the vocal, I gotta de-ess the vocal, and so it takes me out of that aggressive mindset where I would just want to push through and get through the song and get a vibe happening with the song, and then I can go back and tweak a little bit here and there. It takes me out of that mindset when I have to when I have to go and de-ess a vocal. So that's all for now. We will get started on this mix. Hopefully in the next day or two I'll get the video up. So I hope that you join me in this, and I hope this is going to be a fun experiment. We can kind of mix together. You can walk through the mix as I walk through it. If you haven't got the download yet, go grab it. The link is on the first video, part 1 of this video. Also, I wanted to mention that all of these videos will be on the blog in one spot. So, if you don't want to have to fumble through YouTube to try to find these videos, I am going to create a playlist for this series, but it's also going to be over at the blog, and you can find it there. Maybe I'll put a link in the description below or up on the screen, not sure yet, but you can find it there and watch the whole series right there. All 3 videos or 4 videos or whatever it'll be will be posted right next to each other. Okay, that's all for now. Hope you have a great evening, and I will see you in another video really soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.